But first, let's talk about Donald Trump because of his speech generally, but also this incredible development literally in the last 10 minutes. So a warm welcome to the show to former American diplomat, foreign policy advisor for the Republican leadership in the US Senate, Jim Jatras. Hello, Jim.
Howdy, Kevin. Good to be with you.
Thanks for joining us. As I just said, I just wanted to run through with you beforehand about this speech or the speeches he's been making. Let me tell you, some of us in Britain, we love what he says about our broken country and the idiots who are ruining it with their absurd net zero policies, their mad immigration nonsense and so on and so forth. So we're right behind your president on that one. Even us Trump supporters were a little perturbed about his approach to Greenland. But I don't know if you've picked up on it, Jim, but this has just come out literally in the last 10 minutes. The president has announced, based on a very productive meeting that I have had with the Secretary General of NATO, Mark Rutte, we have formed a framework of a future deal with respect to Greenland and the entire Arctic region. And he said the solution, if consummated, will be a great one for the United States of America and all NATO nations. Based on this understanding, I will not be imposing the tariffs that were scheduled to go into effect on February the 1st. So quite a dramatic development. So after all the huff and puff, President Trump is clearly ready to reach a diplomatic solution here, a negotiated solution, and he's not going to impose the tariffs on Britain that were causing great consternation. Did you expect this, or are you surprised by this? What are your thoughts?
Well, Kevin, to tell the truth, I wouldn't be taking this to the bank just yet. I mean, Trump has announced several times that he had a great talk with Putin. He had a great talk with Zelensky. We're this close to a deal. We're 90% there. Well, we ain't there yet. And I think Mr. Trump has made it very clear he wants Greenland. Now, if Mr. Rasmussen, who calls him Daddy, even though Daddy turns out to be a molester now, if he calls him Daddy, it says that we're going to make a deal here, and he thinks that the Europeans will back down because, after all, as you've been discussing earlier with Isabel, your leaders are all worthless and weak, and he has no respect for them. And I think he thinks he can intimidate them. So, yeah, maybe tariffs or military action are off the table right now, but who knows what tomorrow will bring.
And what about his speech generally? I'll say one thing to you, Jim. Months ago, when we first heard word that our idiot Prime Minister and his socialist chums were planning to give away the Chagos Islands, the very strategic Chagos Islands, to China's best friend Mauritius, which had never had sovereignty over them ever anyway, and they're 1,300 miles away. When we first heard about this, because, of course, the Diego Garcia airstrip there is very important to America. It's where they keep an eye on the Middle East and the Far East. It's a really strategic point in the middle of the Indian Ocean, important to America, important to us, important to the security of the West. When we first heard that our idiot Prime Minister wanted to give them away for kind of colonial reasons, he thinks they're a throwback to British imperialism. Who cares? But he does. We hoped and prayed that your fine president would step in and say, I'm not having this. He didn't say anything. He just sort of shrugged his shoulders and said, go ahead. All of a sudden, in the last couple of days, he seems to have woken up to it. It may be to do with Greenland. He's now calling our Chagos giveaway, quite rightly in my view, an act of great stupidity and a display of British weakness. What we are doing with those islands is absolutely insane and dangerous. We are going to have to give them £30 billion over the next 20 years for the privilege of handing these islands to a country that has never owned them. And so much is that, so great is our largesse, that Mauritians, with this $30 billion, have been told they no longer have to pay income tax. That's a side issue. But we wish that President Trump, now he's calling it quite rightly an act of great stupidity, we wish he'd have said it a few months ago because our Prime Minister's now pushed the deal through. This is worrying.
Well, of course, I think it's no state secret that Mr. Trump has just total contempt for Mr. Starmer, and he despises
Don't we
him.
all, Jim? Don't we all?
Well, it's no surprise he despises him because he's in fact despicable. But that's the fact. But here's the trouble: is as you were pointing out with regard to migration, you have a government that really doesn't give a damn about your national security or your national interests. The solution to that, it seems, that a lot of people in Europe have is they can hope that somehow Donald Trump will care more about your national security than your own governments do. And this is the situation you find yourself in, where you've totally outsourced your security and your sovereignty to somebody else who doesn't necessarily have your best interests at heart. Maybe he doesn't even have America's best interests at heart. But the fact is, until you actually assert your sovereignty and your independence, not only with regard to some islands in the Indian Ocean, but even with regard to the United States, you're not going to find your way out of this predicament.
Well, our Prime Minister today, we have Prime Minister's questions in the House of Commons every Wednesday, was challenged by the Leader of the Opposition, the Conservative leader Kemi Badenoch, over his Chagos madness. And the Labour government all along has made it very clear that without President Trump's approval, this Chagos deal would not go through. So Kemi Badenoch quite reasonably said, well, have you seen his tweet from yesterday morning? He said it's an act of great stupidity and a display of British weakness, and it's a crazy deal that shouldn't go through. And what Keir Starmer said, well, he doesn't really mean that, because in the past he said to me he does approve of it. I mean, that's our Prime Minister for you. The point is, he then goes on to say, the President has questioned my belief in the sovereignty of the Greenland people. The decision on the future of Greenland must rest with the Greenlanders. It is their sovereignty, not America's, and so on and so forth. So he's very concerned about sovereignty and the right of Greenlanders to decide on the future of what he calls their own land, Greenland, right? Okay, fair enough. Now, there's another group of people who live or used to live in the middle of the Indian Ocean. They're called Chagosians. They're the Chagos Islanders. Our Prime Minister doesn't seem to give a damn about their sovereignty and their right to live in their own land. He's handing their land to Mauritius. There's only 200 of them left on the islands. The rest of them live in Britain. But you know what I mean? Our Prime Minister sends mixed messages, to say the least.
To say the least. Well, if he doesn't care about your sovereignty, why should he care about the Chagosians? He could talk about the Greenlanders. I mean, talk is cheap. I suppose that makes him feel good with his little friends from Scandinavia, whichever the other countries pretend to be concerned about this. But I have to ask, do you really want to make your national sovereignty and your national interests dependent on what Mr. Trump's thumbs think from one day to the next? And that's sort of the position you found yourself in. Again, I don't know whether he really cares about these islands or not, and he could shrug his shoulders and change his mind from one day to the next, and there's nothing you can do about it. From the days of Bush's poodle Tony Blair, you've been reduced essentially to a province of the Washington leadership.
Exactly right. And where do you think now then, Jim, the special relationship lies? I mean, it seems to be very damaged, and frankly, I'm sure you are aware of this. There are a lot of us in this country. We're on Team Trump. We're not on Team Starmer. You make a good point. I think Donald Trump cares more about British sovereignty than the British Prime Minister.
Well, here's the thing. I think a lot of observers think this is somehow Trump's secret plan to dispose of NATO or to walk away from Europe and so forth. I don't think that's the case. I think what he would like to see is more leaders like Orban in Hungary or Fico in Slovakia, who actually are patriots of a sort and actually care about those countries, but nonetheless, in international affairs, will take their cues solely from Washington. In other words, I think he wants you to retain your vassal position, but he would like better vassals than the ones he's got now.
Exactly right. Well, you bear with me, Jim, and you can watch them as well yourself. I want to play a couple of clips of Donald over the last couple of days in Davos at the moment. This is Donald Trump charging Europe with heading in the wrong direction. Have a look at this.
And I love Europe, and I want to see Europe go good, but it's not heading in the right direction. In recent decades, it became conventional wisdom in Washington and European capitals that the only way to grow a modern Western economy was through ever-increasing government spending, unchecked mass migration, and endless foreign imports.
He's got a good point. I mean, he actually said that both Macron and Britain, you know, Starmer, have got to sort their countries out, and I think that counts for most of the, you know, the European Union nations as well. And what he attacked was our crazy immigration policy. He said much of Europe is unrecognisable to what it used to be. Our immigration policies are mad, and he talked about the absolute lunacy, the insanity of our net zero policies, where in the North Sea, close to this country, we have the biggest reserves of energy almost in the world, and we're refusing to drill anymore. We've shut them all down for reasons of greenery, you know, for windmills, for solar panels that we buy off China that makes them using fossil fuels. So he is pinpointing the increasing, I would call it, woke madness of what goes on in this country. As an American watching this from over there, what do you make of us? What do you make of what's going on over here?
Well, it's sad. I mean, you know, the large majority of Americans have, you know, their roots, their forebears from Europe, and most of them from the United Kingdom. And, you know, this is something that any American, if he knows our history, should care about an awful lot, that we really are essentially one culture, one civilization. And it's just sad to see what's going on. And when he's right about these things, he's right. But I guess what's really particularly sad is looking at the electoral situation in almost all these countries. Can it change? I mean, after all, the conservative so-called migration policy was no better than Labor's. And so if Labor falls, and they come in too, what difference is going to make? I mean, you see this in democratic country after democratic country, where the people all feel some way about an issue, whether it's war or trade or migration, and it doesn't matter which of the Tweedledee Tweedledum parties get into power, you get the same old policies. So can that change in Britain in the next election? I don't know. I hope it can, but you can tell me better than I can, whether that's a possibility.
I think we are heading in that direction. The nation, or the people of this country, have had enough. So, as you probably know, we're swinging right, and we're heading in a Reform UK direction, which Nigel Farage, friend of Donald Trump, a lot of his policies are very similar to Donald Trump's, and I think we need that. Last question, Jim. Now, you know, Donald Trump may or may not still buy Greenland. Who knows? You're quite right. Now I come to think of it, I'm sure that this statement is very significant, but knowing Donald, you know, it's probably just one step in a chain of events that will lead to an outcome that he is keen on. But do you think, I don't know if you're still in touch with him at all, but do you think you could persuade him, if he's having trouble buying Greenland, could he, you know, give that one up and buy Britain? He could run our country. What do you think? Do you think he might be inclined to do that? Yeah, I'll tell you what, he can have it for $20. It's not worth much more.
Well, let's float that out there and see what happens. I think it's a great thought. Unlike, say, Iran, if we want to take Greenland by force, there won't be any fighting. There won't be any war. Nobody's going to oppose us if we occupy the island and plant the flag. I mean, that's the simple fact. All this stuff that's going to break NATO, there's going to be war between NATO members. I don't think any of that's going to happen. That when all's said and done, you know, we're not going to have to kidnap the King of Denmark or the Prime Minister. That they'll just do what they're told and accept what they must. And I frankly think it's entirely doable, and he will do it if there's no other way to do it.
Well said, Jim. By the way, if Donald has any plans to kidnap Keir Starmer, tell him to go right ahead.
No, we don't want him.
Dump him in Greenland. How about that? So he can freeze.
Now we're talking.
Jim, great to have you on board. Thank you so much for your time. That was Jim Jatras, former US diplomat, foreign policy advisor for the Republican leadership in the US Senate.